whimsical, delicate, colorful, detailed are just some of the words used to describe the creative work of Spokane area folk artist Dianna Chelf.
Come on, Matilda, let's go in.
25 years ago, while living in her hometown of Tucson, Arizona, Dianna discovered the perfect outlet for her artistic talent. It was an art form that involved drawing, scissors, and a splash of watercolor. The end result? Sheer magic.
It's called Shear scissor cutting, and I got started because I was always interested in antiques and art, and they were giving a class in it, and I thought it would be nice for my daughter, but she wasn't interested. So I started doing it because I had bought the scissors, and it just sounded like fun.
The history of paper cutting can be traced back to 4th century China. From there, it would eventually spread throughout the world, particularly Europe, where each country developed its own unique style. By the 1700s, the German style of paper cutting, known as Shear had arrived in colonial America. As paper became more available in the 1800s, paper cutting developed into a popular form of artistic expression, both in Europe and America. However, as the new century approached, paper cutting art began to fade away and all but disappear. It wasn't until the 1970s, when interest in American folk art began to rise, that the centuries-old art form of Shear was rediscovered.
When we first moved here, I found very few people that knew about the art form, and I would have to explain it. But now I think because folk art has become much more popular, people are looking at it differently than they used to. And I think that's one of the reasons people recognize it now.
In the world of art, recognition is good. However, it's knowledge of what it takes to produce a particular piece of art that leads to appreciation and ultimately the public's desire to own it. Certainly in the case of Shear appreciation for the art form is well deserved, knowing that beyond artistic drawing and painting skills, it also demands an active imagination, a good eye, and a steady hand.
Well, first of all, I draw a design, and then after I draw my design, I will cut it. I use what I call tablet weight paper, which is acid-free, and I've tried all sorts of different kinds of scissors, and I always go back to the surgical scissors because they have a nice clean edge. And then after I cut it out, then I start watercoloring it. Of course, since I'm going to mat it on black, I try to stay away from black. I use a lot of reds, really bright blues and greens. Sometimes I spend more time on the actual painting, getting a lot of detail with the painting. And then when you mat it on the black, the cutting part and the color just kind of jumps out at you.
Living on 10 acres just south of Spokane, Dianna Chelf's engaging scissor cuttings, like that of her colonial ancestors, are often inspired by her natural surroundings and more.
I like doing, things that I see around me. I get a lot of ideas from old children's books. I love doing children and animals because I have a lot of animals.
Once Dianna completes a one-of-a-kind Shear she adds a special finishing touch by framing her work in a style appropriate with folk art tradition.
A lot of them were framed in frames that were inferior wood. So to make it more appealing, they would do what you call grain painting to simulate wood. My husband makes the frames and I paint them. So for years we just did the scissor cuttings and the frames, and then people loved the frames. And so they wanted something else, so we started doing shaker style boxes. And they're made out of wood, and I paint them with a base coat of acrylic paint, and then I do a top coat with watercolor, and then after that's done, then I spray them to seal them, and then I wax them to give them a nice smooth finish.
For the aspiring artist, there is nothing more gratifying than a nice smooth finish to an original work of art. Yet for the accomplished artist, like Dianna Chelf, who over time has assembled a vast portfolio of respected work, It's not always about how you finish. Instead, it's more about the sheer pleasure of the journey.
I think it's kind of exciting when you're painting or cutting to how it's going to turn out. And after it's finished, and especially if you really like it, then you're proud of your piece. But in a way, it's kind of a letdown because it's enjoyable to be working on it. Of course, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, so it's getting a little harder.
If you have an idea for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.